Hello and welcome. Today I want to talk about Endgame and action RPGs and how Last Epoch's new reworked Monolith system is truly innovating on something that the genre as a whole has been lacking for quite a lot of time. If you look back at the history of Endgame and action RPGs, a lot of the time it's grind the thing you've done before, but get better loot to make your character stronger to grind the thing you've done before even faster. And as a starting place, this is fine. If you look back at the oldest action RPGs, you are literally going through the story again, multiple times, potentially on a higher difficulty, to hope for better drops, to continue to build your character, and to continue to go through the story even faster. This then evolved to Rift-style endgame, where you have a challenge that has scalable difficulty, and you go through that instead. It is a small instance off from the rest of the game world. And you repeat that to gain better items, to make your character stronger, to repeat that on a slightly higher difficulty. On its face, the map system in Path of Exile is very much this kind of thing. You start on a tier 1 map and you end up in tier 16 maps. But over time it has evolved into so much more. One of the most important innovations that Path of Exile made was physically adding the Atlas and allowing you to interact with it. Because at the end of the day, even if the Atlas functions as a menu in a game, it feels far more tactile than interacting with a menu. When you put that watchstone in and you watch the ripple effect of the maps upgrading, it feels far more visceral and satisfying. Just like how, when you have to physically roll your map using an alchemy or binding orb, it feels more rewarding than if you click a left or right or up or down option on a menu, even if the end effect is the same. So Path of Exile's Atlas does a very good job of engaging players with the game by immersing and allowing for direct interaction. Secondly, there's far more customization to a Path of Exile map, because even though mapping ends at tier 16, you can add watchstones to encourage certain content. You can add masters to force content in. You can put on scarabs. You can add layers of delirium to greatly increase the difficulty and reward. You can roll sextants, and the map modifiers themselves also change how you interact with the map. You're not really going to be tanking things in an extra crit double damage minus max map. Not the same way you'd be breezing through if a map had no modifiers. So all these things combine to make a very satisfying and engaging endgame that you can spend a lot of time playing. And this level of engagement is one of the biggest reasons why Path of Exile took off. You can have as many diverse builds as possible, and in this regard, Wolfson did a pretty decent job of allowing for diverse builds, but if you're doing the same 6 areas over and over again, it gets old pretty fast, especially if you're selecting modifiers for those areas from a literal menu. In a lot of ways, Last Epoch suffered from some of the same things previously in the beta. The endgame wasn't bad. I did enjoy the Monolith system. It felt like early mapping from Path of Exile. But the web-style system that they have implemented with patch 0.8.2 has really taken this to the next level. You now have a Monolith web where, once you enter the Monolith, you get to pick from whichever quest echo that you want to go to first. Each one adds a modifier that makes quest echoes more dangerous for a certain amount of time, it has a reward, and it gives a certain level of progression. The progression comes in the form of stability. As you fill the stability bar, you hit markers. These markers give you access to the quest echoes, which will ultimately let you defeat the final boss and clear the monolith. But this web does an amazing job of making the experience far more tactile. Instead of me just picking options from a menu in a dispassionate and all-knowing way, I feel like I'm physically there. I'm moving around the map, and if I don't like the choices in front of me, I can just go somewhere else, or I can choose to interact with it in a way that might re-roll the options. There are also several different types of quest echoes now. It's no longer run to the end of a map and do a thing, it's run to the end of a map and do a thing, or fight a bunch of waves of enemy in the arena, which provides a welcome break from the grind. Having different types of grind is a very good way to trick your brain into thinking you're not grinding at all. One other thing that's been handled differently now is death. Before, the death system was quite punishing. I didn't mind this personally, but I did feel like you could get yourself stuck in a cycle where you die, you fall behind, and it gets more difficult, so you then keep falling behind without progressing. Now if you die, you lose the reward from the monolith you died in, but you're not set back too far. I'm not entirely sure what happens if you die in a quest echo or against the Shade of Oribus. I haven't personally experienced either of those situations yet, so if you've had it happen to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. This new system also feels far more rewarding, because let's say I'm playing a build that uses daggers, and I want a new dagger. I can now target echoes that give dagger rewards. If I want to level up faster, I can target echoes that give EXP rewards. Because there's so many branching options, and because the more you travel in one direction, the more stability you get, thus progressing the entire monolith faster, it certainly incentivizes you to keep pushing in a direction. But if you come across a bunch of modifiers that really don't suit your playstyle, let's say you're playing a build that's super reliant on crits, you deal no damage unless you crit, and you get 4 or 5 crit avoid areas in a row, you could say, I don't want to keep going into here, I'm going to just path over this way now. I'm going to explore where this is. Maybe I get 32 stability instead of the 36 I was getting, but I'll still be able to progress in a meaningful way, and I'll be able to avoid those modifiers that were really nasty for your build. Whereas in the past, even if you rerolled, you could sometimes get unlucky, and it felt pretty awful. Which brings me to the stability system itself. It's a great way to customize the amount of time you spend in a monolith. You don't ever have to do a quest echo at a certain point. You could do them at your own leisure. You could collect a bunch of stability, and wait for the modifiers to be relatively weak because of the number of things you've cleared. Or alternatively, if you really want to test your build, you could find some of the hardest modifiers available, and then go straight into the final boss. The closer to the start point of the web, the less stability you get. The farther you travel in a direction, the more stability you get. And eventually, if you travel far enough, you will encounter the Shade of Oribus. Defeating the Shade of Oribus will give you a large amount of stability, and reset the entire web. It will also give Corruption. Corruption means that the entire thing is now more difficult and more rewarding. On average, at the same progression point, this means you'll get more stability as well. But because the entire thing is reset, you're now back to those low stability early choices, rather than the high stability rewarding later choices, and you get to progress outwards. I don't yet know if it's better to completely ignore the Shade of Oribus, kill him every time I see him, or some balance in between. But I'm definitely going to be experimenting, and this adds another layer of interest and progression to each empowered monolith that I run. And on that note, the Shade of Oribus himself is an interesting boss fight, because unlike most bosses in games, where they have a set of abilities and are fairly predictable, the Shade of Oribus is very random. It combines multiple randomly chosen abilities with literally thousands of combinations. So every time you fight it, it's going to feel a little bit different. You're going to find versions of the Shade of Oribus that are a cakewalk for your build, and you're going to find others that are extremely punishing, as I found when on my Blade Dancer, I rolled one that had a lot of abilities that were really unfriendly to melee. So it's a good way to keep you on your toes and keep you from feeling like the boss fight got stale because you fought it a billion times. So in closing, what do I think about the 0.8.2 patch and how the endgame has been reworked for Last Epoch? I feel like Last Epoch is a game that's innovative in a lot of ways. Many of the things that they've implemented as game systems aren't completely unique in the genre. But they've taken an idea that's been a staple of the action RPG genre and iterated on it in a very creative and engaging manner. The game's incredibly intuitive, and it feels fresh, new, and, in a lot of ways, like Path of Exile did when Path of Exile first came out when compared to the older action RPGs of the time. In this way, the web-style Monolith is far more engaging, and it's really encouraged me to push my characters past 90, when before I felt like I was just selecting things on menus and grinding away for the sake of grinding. Now I feel like I'm exploring something, and even if I'm spending the same amount of literal real-world time to progress, the progression feels like it goes by much faster because it's much more fun. And what's even more impressive to me is, this isn't their magnum opus. This is only one of multiple endgame systems that they have envisioned for Last Epoch. I'm very excited to see what 11th Hour Games does to iterate on other types of endgame that we see in action RPGs, and where their systems take them going forwards. This empowered monolith system is great. There's never been a better time to check out Last Epoch. If you want to see a full review of the game from before this most recent patch, then be sure to check out my review down in the description below. If you want to buy it, check out my Nexus, where you can purchase the game while also supporting me, as I will get a commission on each sale. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of these, be sure to join my Discord, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell, as those are the best ways to see whenever I upload. Now, I turn the question over to you. How do you feel about the Monolith system as an endgame in Last Epoch? And how do you compare it to other action RPGs you've played? Do you think that it will get boring and repetitive quickly? Or do you think that it's engaging enough and allows you to play with enough internal levers and gears and make enough meaningful choices that it's going to keep you engaged and keep you coming back all the way to level 100? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And special thanks to all of my channel members who help support me so that I can continue to make videos just like this one. Your support really means a lot, and without it, I probably wouldn't be able to make videos of this regularly. If you want to help support the channel, click the membership button or the link down in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful and want to ask me a question in a more interactive setting, I stream at least once a week here on YouTube, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have relating to this video or any of my other videos. Thank you again, and I hope to see you on stream sometime. Have a great day.